Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a whole collection of sources. They paint a pretty vivid and sometimes, frankly, unsettling picture of what's happening globally right now.
Yeah, we got quite a mix. Stuff from a YouTube channel, Historia Gotas, Russian state media like TASS and Zvezda, official statements from both Ukrainian and Russian defense ministries, even some international news outlets.
So our goal today is really to unpack these recent escalations, look at the shifting geopolitics, and maybe uncover some surprising bits about military tech and diplomacy.
Exactly. We'll be comparing these sometimes clashing narratives and trying to connect the dots for you to see that bigger picture.
Okay, let's get into it then. As we start looking at all this, what's the first thing that really jumps out at you?
Well, the sheer intensity, I think, and the drastically different ways the same events are being described.
Okay, let's start right there. The intense military actions. Ukraine's side is reporting a massive Russian attack.
Right. President Zelensky, he said the previous night saw, and I'm quoting him here, one of the biggest attacks of drones and missiles in recent months.
And he was very clear, asserting these attacks are always against humanity, specifically hitting civilian infrastructure.
The Ukrainian Air Force backed that up with numbers. They reported Russia launched, get this, 426 drones and 24 missiles. That's a huge number.
Huge. And even though many were apparently intercepted, the volume itself, well, it led to tragedy. 2 deaths confirmed and at least 15 injured when this was recorded.
And it wasn't just the usual hotspots like Kyiv or Kharkiv. The destruction hit Ivano-Frankivsk, way out in the west.
Yeah, the mayor there called it the heaviest attack since the beginning of the war. That's significant.
Absolutely. And you had people in Kyiv taking shelter in the metro stations again. Kharkiv saw at least 12 attacks. An industrial site caught fire.
Ivano-Frankivsk also reported injuries, at least 4 injured there.
But then you look at how Russia describes these exact same events. It's night and day.
Completely different narrative, right? What's their angle?
Their Ministry of Defense talks about a night attack, yes, but with high-precision weapons.
Yeah.
They specifically mention Kinzhal hypersonic missiles.
Those are the really fast, hard-to-intercept ones.
Precisely. And crucially, they're declared targets. Facilities linked to the Ukrainian military industry and military airfield infrastructure. No mention of civilian areas.
They actually put out a formal statement on this, didn't they?
They did. It's quite direct. They said, yesterday night, the Russian armed forces carried out a combined attack with long-range precision air, ground, and sea-launched weapons, including air-launched Kinzhal ballistic hypersonic missiles and also unmanned aerial vehicles against enterprises of Ukraine's military-industrial sector and against military airfield infrastructure. The objective of the attack was achieved. All targets were hit.
Wow. So you have these 2 completely conflicting official stories about the same night. It just underscores, doesn't it, how incredibly difficult it is for you, listening, to figure out the ground truth.
It really does. You have to constantly question the source and look for corroboration, which is often impossible in real time.
But this escalation, it's not just one way. The sources also show a pretty significant uptick in Ukrainian attacks inside Russia.
That's a key part of the picture. If you look at Russian state media, like TASS, they reported Ukrainian drones causing, and this is their phrase, true chaos at Moscow's main airports.
Chaos. What did that look like?
Well, Zvezda and others had videos.
Yeah.
People literally sleeping on the floor at Sheremetyevo, that's Russia's biggest airport. Huge lines for rescheduling flights.
So real disruption then?
Absolutely. Rosaviatsia, their civil aviation authority, had to put temporary flight restrictions on all 4 big Moscow airports: Sheremetyevo, Vnukovo, Domodedovo, and Zhukovsky.
And the knock-on effects?
Hours of delays, cancellations. And it wasn't just Moscow. Thousands of passengers got stranded way out in Russia's Far East because their connecting flights from European Russia were grounded. They even had to run extra trains from St. Petersburg to Moscow.
That's widespread impact. Now, the Russian military also gave their side on these attacks, right, in terms of defense?
Yes, the Ministry of Defense released numbers. They claim they intercepted 74 Ukrainian UAVs just in one night, between late July 20th and early July 21st.
74. And where were these drones headed?
All over, really. The breakdown was 23 over the Moscow region, with 15 apparently heading for the capital itself. Then 14 over Kursk, 12 over Rostov, 10 over Bryansk, 10 over Kaluga, 4 over Tula, and 1 over Lipetsk.
That shows quite a reach penetrating deep into Russia.
It does. And there were tangible consequences on the ground, too. In Rostov, debris from a drone hit a railway station, Komolome, causing a fire and delaying dozens of passenger trains.
Right. At least 26 trains delayed.
And in another place, Rakovo, drone fragments damaged a house, the summer kitchen, cars. Fortunately, no casualties reported there.
Yeah.
A flower shop also caught fire somewhere else but was put out.
So these aren't just minor border incidents anymore.
Not at all. And it raises that big question, doesn't it? When the attacks start hitting deep inside your own country, how does that change public feeling? How does it shift the whole dynamic of the conflict?
Definitely something to consider. Okay, let's shift gears slightly. While all this is happening on the ground, there are ripples spreading out, affecting the wider geopolitical map. Let's talk about Moldova.
Ah, yes, Moldova. Historically neutral, but now increasingly looking like a focal point.
There was an interesting take from Alf Brossart, a retired Swiss military figure with OSCE experience. What did he suggest?
He basically put forward the idea that NATO and the EU pushing to militarize Moldova suggests they might be worried. Worried that Kyiv could lose control of its Black Sea coast, specifically Odessa.
Because controlling the Black Sea coast is so strategically important.
Hugely important for trade, for naval power projection. So Brossart's thinking is, if NATO is bolstering Moldova, maybe they anticipate a serious Russian push towards Odessa down the line.
And this isn't just external speculation. Moldova's own president, Maia Sandu, she's openly talked about possibly ditching neutrality.
She has. Stated the country could abandon the neutrality provided for in its constitution and join NATO.
And they've already started moving in that direction.
Seems so. They've approved a program to adopt NATO military standards, and their new national security strategy explicitly names Russia as the main threat. That's a big shift.
Which predictably got a reaction from Moscow.
Oh, absolutely. Russia's Foreign Intelligence Agency, the SDR, put out a warning around mid-July. They claimed NATO is basically prepping Moldova to be a battering ram against Russia.
A battering ram. Strong words.
Very. They accused Brussels of trying to accelerate Moldova's transformation into an alliance bridgehead on its eastern flank, especially given Russia's advances in Ukraine at the time.
So for you, the listener, what this Moldova situation really shows is how a conflict that seems localized can redraw geopolitical lines, pulling in countries that were previously on the sidelines.
Exactly. It raises the stakes, changes the regional power balance. It's not just about Moldova. It's about that wider NATO-Russia dynamic.
Okay, so we've talked about the fighting, the narratives, the geopolitics. Now let's get into the actual tools of war here, the drones specifically. There was a pretty revealing, maybe even chilling, video from Russian state media.
Yes, this was quite something. It showcased what Russia's calling the largest and most secret drone factory in the world.
Largest and most secret. Where is this supposed to be?
According to the video from Zvezda, that's the channel linked to the Russian mod, it's in the Alabuga Industrial Park, which is near Kazan in Tatarstan.
And the scale, is it really that big?
Oh, the CEO of the zone, Timur Sagaliev, he claimed, it is indeed the largest plant of its kind in the world and the most secret. He also added, the initial plan was to produce several thousand Garand drones. Now we are producing 9 times more than planned. 9
times more. Do we have any numbers on current production?
The report suggested that since May, the factory's been churning out about 5,200 Shahid-type attack drones and decoy models per month.
5,200 a month. That's a lot of drones. And these Gen 2 drones, they're the Russian version of the Iranian Shahid, right?
That's right. Described as about 3.5 meters long, carrying a 50-kilo warhead, decent range up to 1,800 kilometers, though not particularly fast, around 300 kilometers.
Okay, but here's the part that really struck me. The cost.
Ah, yes. The economics of it are crucial.
They estimate each Gen 2 costs somewhere between, $35,000 and maybe $49,000.
Exactly. Which sounds like a lot until you compare it to what it costs to shoot them down.
Right. A single Western interceptor missile, like from a Patriot system, can cost several $1 million.
Precisely. And that lays bare the attrition strategy. Moscow can saturate Ukraine's defenses with these relatively cheap drones,
forcing Ukraine and its allies to expend incredibly expensive munitions to counter them.
It's a huge challenge. It puts immense strain on Kyiv's resources and Western stockpiles. This factory, Ilabuga, apparently opened in 2023. It's got foundries, assembly lines.
Though some key parts still come from Iran.
Yeah, reportedly transported via the Caspian Sea and the Kama River. But the domestic production is ramping up fast. One Russian military analyst estimated production jumped nearly 17% just in May.
So this economic imbalance in the drone war, it really forces us to think about how strategies have to adapt, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's not just about technological superiority anymore. It's about cost effectiveness and sustainability in long conflict.
Okay, so from drone factories, let's pivot to the potentially high-stakes world of diplomacy. There's talk of a possible meeting that could have some pretty significant implications.
Yes, this involves Russia and the U.S. Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesman, he mentioned that Moscow wouldn't rule out a meeting between Putin and Trump if they both happen to be in Beijing at the same time.
And is there a reason they might both be in Beijing?
Well, Putin's confirmed visit is for the 80th anniversary commemorations of the end of World War II in Asia. Trump's presence isn't confirmed, but Peskov's specific quote was, "You know that we are preparing for a trip to Beijing, but we have not heard that President Trump will also go. If, by chance, he is there, then of course we cannot rule out that the question of the advisability of holding a meeting will be raised."
Interesting phrasing. If by chance.
Very diplomatic. There's also a report at the time suggesting China might actually be trying to facilitate such a summit during these events.
China positioning itself as a mediator again.
Seems like it could be part of their broader push to be seen as a major global player, a deal broker. And it's worth remembering, Trump and Putin have apparently spoken several times since Trump returned to office.
6 times, the report said.
At least 6, yeah. The Kremlin says it's open to an in-person meeting, but emphasizes it needs careful preparation to be useful.
So a potential summit to watch, even if it's still hypothetical. Now, speaking of international dealings and military kit, let's touch on Turkey.
Right, Turkey, always a key player, especially within NATO, even with occasional tensions.
They seem keen to boost their air force again.
They do. This time they're looking at the Eurofighter Typhoon, and apparently they've gotten positive signals from both Berlin and London about a potential deal.
Even though Turkey isn't in the EU, it's a major NATO member.
Exactly. And President Erdogan himself sounded optimistic. Coming back from a trip, he said, "The British and the Germans are approaching this positively, God willing. I believe we will receive our fighter jets as soon as possible."
And these Typhoons, they're built by a European consortium.
Yeah, Germany, UK, Italy, Spain, companies like Airbus, BAE Systems, Leonardo are involved. Erdogan mentioned talking to the British PM Starmer and German Chancellor Scholz and getting positive vibes from them, too.
So what's the takeaway for you here? Is this just Turkey buying new planes?
Well, it's partly that, modernization, but it's also about signaling, isn't it? Choosing European fighter reinforces Turkey's NATO ties, despite, sometimes complex relations.
And the Typhoon itself is a capable aircraft.
Oh, yes. It's considered a 5th-generation fighter advanced tech multi-role, capable of air-to-air combat ground attack. For Turkey, with its interests and challenges in the Med, Syria, the Caucasus, acquiring these jets definitely bolsters its regional influence and global projection.
So lots of moving parts on the battlefield in factories and diplomatic corridors.
Absolutely.
Oh.
As we sort of wrap up this deep dive, it's just so clear how interconnected everything is. Events in one area ripple outwards in really profound ways.
Yeah, from those clashing narratives about missile strikes to the strategic game being played with cheap drones, shifting alliances like with Moldova and these big diplomatic possibilities, trying to understand it all is key.
Really is.
So let's leave you with a final thought to chew on. Thinking about those drones, the cheap Duran 2s versus the expensive interceptors, this whole economic side of the war, what does this increasing reliance on asymmetric warfare, especially the cost imbalance, tell us about where defense spending and maybe even global alliances are headed?
That's the big question, isn't it? Is this economic equation of modern warfare fundamentally changing? And if so, what kind of new technologies, new strategies, or even new alliances might we see emerge to tackle this challenge? Something definitely for you to consider.